Today we're going to take a look at the Blackfathom Deep drops, and talk quickly about which ones we think are the best for various roles. Wowhead is currently updating the drop locations of each of these though, so if you have looked at it before or look at it in the futures, the bosses may not be listed correctly or may have changed. And while you won't get the entire set of gear from Blackfathom Deeps, it will be a good source for roughly 70 to 80% of it. That means get your lockouts in every 3 days this phase to grab as many of these items as you can before the new phase drops. Starting out though, we'd like to take a quick look at the new set release, Twilight Invoker Set. Twilight Invoker Set bonuses are really powerful, however, are they worth trying to assemble the entire set? Well, to be honest, we think it would be worthwhile, at least for DPS specializations. Even though we won't get anywhere near the full max PvE hit of 16%, getting as much hit as you can while maintaining our other stats at reasonable levels is the preferred method to maximize your DPS. In general, for PvE, hit is king up to a certain point due to the fact a spell hit resist is equal to 0 damage, and not having any haste in vanilla means you will basically be casting your spells at whatever their base spell speed is, minus any talent bonuses of course. However, in Phase 1 vanilla, warlocks would only get roughly 5 to 6% spell hit, and focus entirely on spell damage and spell critical to maximize damage around resist, because there just honestly wasn't anywhere close to enough hit to cap our spell hit even if we wanted to. Because of that, we think that you'll be following a similar theory here at 25, simply because again, you have nowhere near any amount of source to get up to that 16% hit rate. So grabbing 2 to 3% hit from, say a couple pieces of your gear, and then using the new Blackfathom weapon oil to maximize your hit even further would be better than focusing on just trying to stack as much hit as you can at the expense of intellect, spell power, spell critical, or stamina. Now, starting with the helmets. Currently there are 2 options for helmet drops: Rakamar's Tattered Thinking Cap and Twilight Invoker's Shawl. Either option will do fine, however if you are aiming for the Twilight Invoker set, then your option is hard locked to the Shawl. For certain PvP specializations like Affliction, where most of your spells can be PvP hit capped via suppression, Rakamar's Tattered Thinking Cap will give you more raw stats and spell power versus the Invoker Shawl, however. Moving on to necklaces now. Necklaces will vary depending on your specialization, but depending on your specialization you may actually have a couple different options. For tank locks, the Voidwalker brooches would be a very good option, giving you more stamina and defense, but the Jagged Bone Necklace gives you more spell power and armor. Jagged Bone Necklace would be the go-to option for fire-based damage locks, however, but for shadow-based damage locks, Black Shroud Choker will ease you out a bit more damage over the Jagged Bone Necklace. Moving on to shoulders though. Ashari's Novice shoulder pads look good on the surface, but Frayed Chestnut Mantle is the one you want to go to, regardless of your specialization. Giving you stamina, intellect, and spell power, all very important stats every specialization would want. Moving on though, we'll take a quick peek at our only cloak option. Flowing Scarf will eke you out a few more intellect over a similarly level Cloak of the Eagle, but with how contested it will be, I would advise you to put this as the last option to shoot for. It does give us more mana, but it isn't anything amazing or groundbreaking compared to a lot of these other options. Moving on to the chest drops now. The chest slot is another slot where we have a lot of options depending on our specialization, both in and out of Blackfathom Deep drops. For Blackfathom Deep drops though, tanks can't go wrong with Clamweave Tunic, giving us boost to all the important stats that you need like agility, stamina, and intellect, while Twilight Invoker's robes are nice spell power robes for any DPS lock specialization, and you will need it to complete the set. However, if you don't want the set, they are still amazing robes to wear just by themselves. Time to tackle the glove options. Warlock tanks and fire-based specializations would want to shoot for the Black Fingerless gloves, versus the Hand Wraps of Befouled Water being the better choice for shadow damage based warlocks, both regardless of PvP or PvE. Moving on though, it's time to take a look at our belt option. Gamu Ra Cinch would probably be the better choice for tanks between that option and the Argo Belt option. However, for DPS, we think sticking with the Argo Belt is the better choice, giving you slightly more mana and a smidge more spell critical as a result. Either option though is a good option and will easily carry you through all of Phase 1. Legs are up next. Even though there are 2 options here like the other categories, you may think that means you have options. Sadly you don't. Soul Leech Pants are just flat out better than Gaze Dreamer leggings, having the same armor, similar stat distribution, and more spell power. Every specialization should try to go for Soul Leech pants, but settle for Gaze Dreamer leggings if you can't get them. Moving on to boots now. For boots, tanks may want to take a look at the Skinwalker boots if they don't have tailoring, and similarly for DPS wanting to complete the Invoker set or don't have tailoring, Twilight Invoker boots are solid options. However, if you do have tailoring, the new epic pattern you get from Void Touch's questline will vastly outperform both of these, while also giving you 1% spell hit without having to complete the entire Invoker set. Time for rings. Being that there's only one ring drop, the Signet of the Twilight Lord, you'll want to pair that with the ring you get from Honored with your respective PvP faction reputation, and you won't have to worry about any rings really until the next phase. Switching gears to trinkets though, we may have some items worth talking about that they have recently added with this new expansion. Oh boy, did they add a killer trinket with this raid. Invoker's Void Pearl is your go-to drop for this, and according to Wowhead, you currently get it from completing the quest that drops off the loot off the final boss of the Blackfathom Deeps, Onyxia Head style. Fetish of the Mischief, however, is exactly like it sounds. Better than an empty trinket slot, but you should replace this as soon as possible with the trinket you unlock via the respective PvP reputations this phase. Lastly, to cover the weapons section. Weapons like legs seem like there are many options, but unfortunately it's a very tiered category, with the best weapon you can obviously get being the new epic staff Rod of the Ancient Sleepwalker, basically being an easier to get Staff of Jordan. If you can't get the staff or it never drops, Dagger of Willing Sacrifice paired with Tome of Cavern Lore will get you very similar spell power levels as the Rod provides. However, if you can't get either of those, you'll have to settle for Blackfathom Ritual Dagger, which will be better than pretty much any other weapon that you can get, but very, very inferior compared to these other two options. Well, after going through a look at all that gear, you can see why you should try to spend as many lockouts grinding it out as possible, to be in the best possible position on the grind to 40 next phase. Also, in our opinion, unless there are adjustments made to the drops from the mid-level dungeons that will activate next phase, these raid drops will most likely carry you into the next leveling raid that they release. Thanks for tuning in, and if you want to see more Warlock content, be sure to subscribe. Also, why not leave us a comment down below about which item you hope to attain first. Have a good night!